everyone, my name is Chang Sun, and welcome to Women Data Science 2022 Maastricht Conference video series. This Maastricht panel discussion was led by Aurelie Carlier from the Female Empowerment Network from UM.
Welcome everybody to, let's say, this final session, which is the career session. And today, or in this session, we actually are going to have a nice panel discussion with these three amazing scientists, Dr. Kalina or Chandna, Dr. Tsveta, and then Katarina. And I will be moderating the session. And so I also welcome you to put anything, questions in the chat. I'll also have a look at the chat, and then we can ask these questions to the speakers. So, but very briefly, before we continue, I would also like to introduce FEM, which is a network that I'm currently chairing and that I also co-founded. So it's called Female Empowerment Maastricht University. You also have, let's say, our contact details here. And I just want to very briefly introduce it here, that it is a network that was developed at Maastricht, and that we actually do quite some activities to create more awareness and to also more awareness regarding the topic of gender equity, which is of course very applicable on this special day. So we developed certain trainings, for example, negotiation training, but also now we have an active bystander training and a bridging the gap training, which we actually co-organize together with the Staff Career Center. And so FEM pays actually half of the fee that otherwise the participant should pay. So have a look at the offers of the Staff Career Center. And what is also interesting to know is that for those that need education hours, it also counts actually for your continuous professional development hours. So something to consider. We also try to, of course, inform people. We actually are active on social media, but also on the website of FEM. You can actually find quite some information on, for example, we developed a leaflet with all kinds of grants and awards that exist for women in academia and other kind of information that might be very useful for you. And then we try to establish networks. So the fact that other people at the university can meet each other, that maybe can kind of help each other. So we have a lot of lunches on various topics, the Women Researchers Festival, which was yesterday, and also some other webinars that we do to kind of, again, create more awareness on the topic, but also, of course, for us to meet and to create a network. And then we have actually also, we are trying to weigh also on the policy that is happening at Maastricht, but also actually beyond. So we successfully actually negotiated some VD extensions with the NWO. We're trying to do the same for the ERC, so to mitigate partially the effects of the pandemic and the fact that women had less chance to maybe write some grants. We also wrote the position paper on recognition and rewards, and as well as the white paper on the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on caregivers at Maastricht University, which is actually being discussed now at the highest level of the university to see whether we can take particular measures to counteract those effects. And so with that, actually, I would really like to start the session. And so I would invite Katarina to maybe give a very short overview of the career path that she has taken so far, and also the lessons that she took from those steps. So Katarina.
Okay, thank you, Aurelia. Can you hear me all? Yeah, okay. So my background is in mathematics. So I'm really getting old, I think, because I just tried to calculate it, and I had my master's thesis in 2004, and during that time I visited TU Delft where I had a co-supervisor. Then I did PhD in Delft, which was not at all like. It was more like I liked it in Delft, and then I thought, oh, why not take the PhD? So it was now really like a like a sort of very thoughtful choice or so. So that's it was more like a random choice, but I was at the right place at the right moment, and that was in game theory. Then after the PhD, I spent a year in France, while my partner stayed in the Netherlands, which was the main reason why I then came back to the Netherlands, where I then did a postdoc and then spent quite a lot of time as an assistant and an associate professor at Maastricht University, Department of Data Science Knowledge Engineering. And in between, I had offsprings born. I think my employer had to be very happy that they employed me in 2012. And I had my first child in 2013, when I switched to 0.6 FTE. And I stayed actually on this contract until the time when I was awarded Delft Technology Fellowship, therefore I moved to Delft in September 2021, and now I work 0.8 FTE. That was a bit slow, wasn't it? Okay, and now the crucial moments. Yes, the fact that I'm here is really influenced by meeting of my partner during my PhD, with whom we stayed. We have children, and it was very clear when I was in France that either I come back or maybe the relationship is not the thing which will stay. So that's how I ended in the Netherlands again, and I'm happy with that. But that really shaped me. Kids, a lot of chaos, a lot of dynamic elements and adjustments, and really juggling much more flights. I guess many of us can imagine this or have this experience. The reason why I moved to cancer was because my dear collaborator and a friend died of cancer, and that's how I decided to actually see whether I can use my superpowers to help there. And that's why I organized Lawrence workshops where I included like physicians and cancer biologists, etc., and mathematicians. And then we had really brainstorming sessions where we decided this is what we should do. That's how we can help, and that's and then I got a number of projects which, like career-wise, influenced me quite a lot. So I could actually work with these smart young people, and I'm working with them until now, and sort of bringing the ideas which which I was sort of introducing in my talk, to the practice. And the important people, so I guess the first place should be to my family. Second place to great collaborators and friends. I think I now really collaborate only with friends. So I think that it's much more pleasant to collaborate with those people you like. Otherwise, it probably, for me, it doesn't work. Otherwise, supervisors, the good examples and also the bad ones, they all shaped me, and I think I learned lifelong lessons. And also, I think this is not my statement, but the fact that I think it's known saying that the good leader really creates leaders and not followers. And I think that some of my supervisors and also mentors really showed me a good example of that. And I think mentors in a broad sense of the word. So I am learning every day from people much younger than me, from different backgrounds, perspectives, from my PhD candidates also. So I'm very thankful to them. So they're all important for my path.
Thank you very much, Katerina. If I may ask her a quick question here, and also I encourage everybody also in the audience to put the questions in the chat if you have any. So regarding the mentors and the supervisors, as you mentioned, you kind of learn either whether they're good or bad. So it's always a lesson, let's say. But how did you choose them, or when, and for the mentors and also, for the supervisors? So how did you try to find those that fit with you?
So I think the supervisors, that's something you cannot really choose, at least in some, at some stages. So there it's more about observing them, but I think I can talk about the mentors, right? So we don't need to call it a mentor, right? I think that I have these colleagues with whom I talked about research, and all of a sudden I realized I really like to discuss with them also other things. And that's and I have multiple people like that. So with whom we maybe spend half of our run talking about how things are going at the workplace, and then we talk maybe about some research. And then I realized I want to talk to these people often, and I sort of hope that they feel the same way. So in this sense, I mentor them, but they mentor me. And I think that you feel when there is this click, and when you want to see these people and you are learning from them, right? So it's and then I think, of course, there are choices which they make, and they might not fit you. But I was very lucky that with some of these collaborators, friends, and also mentors, I really feel that things that they are doing, I'm really happy. I see how it works their impact on me, and then I learn these customs as well with the people I work with. Is that am I answering your question here?
Yeah.
I wonder about the others, whether they have a different way. I'm not sure. Yes.
Yeah, if indeed Sveta or Kalina, am I pronouncing your name correctly? I'm sorry. Is it Chalina or Kalina?
No, it's, I'm not muted. Okay. Yes, Kalina.
Kalina, yeah, if you want to add here indeed what your opinion is about the mentors, let's say, and whether they have been important to you as well, feel free to pitch in.
Well, one thing that I recognize from Katerina, what she's saying, is that we learn also from young people, from students, not only from our what we see like our supervisors. And I don't know. For me, maybe the more I grow, let's say in my experience, the more I learn from, the more I'm impressed by the young people that, for example, are students following an internship with us, or maybe they join also the company because they have let's say a different attitude, and yes, they embrace changes in a much faster way. So I think that's maybe the most striking thing that I recognize from Katerina. But of course, there is a difference between mentor and supervisor. There is a difference between leader and manager. In company, we have leaders, but not, or managers, but not everybody from the managers is also leader.
Yes. And then you have really people who are your peers, who are actually leaders, and you see it and you feel it. Sorry for disturbing.
No. Yes, and it's the same with, I think supervisor is a role, but mentorship is somebody maybe that inspires you, or maybe that, how to say, influence you somehow in a sense, maybe in taking your decisions, or maybe not taking your decisions. So I think it's, to me, the difference is, one is a role or a status, and the other one is something that that has an impact on us, either as a career or as a person. And probably that's what I can share from, which is very similar to what Katerina said.
Yeah, very nice. Thank you. I'm gonna hear maybe Sveta, you can share your career path now and the wisdom, let's say, that you obtained by going through it.
Yes, thank you, Aurélie. I will try to do my best, especially in terms of wisdom. Well, if we take a look at the career path that I also put here in short, I don't think I have anything striking or needed to be discussed in very much detail. I did a master's degree. I was born in the Soviet Union, so after my master's degree, there was little to do actually in terms of research in the country I come from, Ukraine. Well, I was looking at options, I should say, and I found an option thanks to my supervisor of my master thesis, whose name is also on the slide, Professor Ahmetshan. Unfortunately, he passed away later. So he helped me to have a connection with a professor in Paris who was looking for people. And that's the reason I landed in Paris without speaking any word in French. So in terms of like a school of life, there was a huge step to make, I think. And after that, there were multiple postdoc positions I had in several laboratories. And finally, I settled as an assistant and then associate professor in Eindhoven in the Netherlands. Why I did that? Well, actually, I chose more or less deliberately to stay in academia, if possible, because getting a permanent position in academia is not easy. One of important reasons for me was, for example, teaching. My grandmother, who raised me, who was called Eva Kamenetskaya, she was a teacher. We have about 1 century of teaching in the family as a tradition. And I could not simply, I was like feeling that I have to do that, and that I can do that. So I'm indeed doing a lot of teaching. Otherwise, I would maybe join a company. There are perfect places in this country where you can do research and development. So if you are not really enjoying all those students who are sometimes kind of teenagers, it's maybe better to leave, because I think you can easier have a stable job outside of academia than inside, to be very honest. And concerning the important people further, well, and also what you were just discussing with Katerina and Kalina in terms of mentors and supervisors, to say to us to say formally, Eindhoven University of Technology has a mentorship program, which is also helping some women, but it's for everybody basically. And the mentor we can get, even though it's not maybe perfectly organized yet, but the mentors are disconnected from the department and from the career evaluations, etc. Maybe it's not bad. I should say I never had one. I also was not even informed at the right moment about that. So my personal case, that the mentors probably were rather my family. And that's what you see, the one love for science, making you curious, but also supporting you in your choices, which my husband did a lot, Dani. So yeah, that was rather this in my case. And then the supervisors, like Katerina said, you don't often choose. You you indeed can look at them. My PhD supervisor, though, was, I think, very helpful, because I came from a very different environment without any experience in languages at all, except for the languages we speak in Ukraine. So he was very patient, and he showed me the kind of the way to work. I learned a lot from him, actually. I think I should be very thankful to him, Professor Henri Maitre. So that's what I have. I don't know if I have one more slide. Not to bore people too much with personal stories. No. Okay.
No, indeed. Yeah, sorry. But there was
Fine.
an interesting question actually from Visara in the chat. I'm sorry, it's moving forward. That both you and Katerina actually came from France and then moved to the Netherlands, and whether you noticed a difference, let's say, in academic culture between France and the Netherlands.
Oh yeah, that's a good question. Well, there is one important thing which is even maybe more serious than culture, is simply the academia itself. In France, PhD is not the highest title you can get in academia. So if you have PhD, you basically are not entitled to have your own PhD students. So you need one more degree, which is another book with another defense. And they call it like, I don't know exactly, it's like, it's a right to conduct research, and that's actually a right to supervise research. So that's why doing a PhD in France, it's shorter, it's lighter in terms of content, because you will write one more book for your career if you stay. In the Netherlands, it is the latest, the greatest degree you can have. So there is nothing above. And if you are successful in your career after your PhD, you will get your own PhD student. So PhD here is heavier. And when I came with my French PhD to this country, it was a bit like a misalignment also, because when you do a postdoc in France after PhD, you are still a student, more or less. They kind of complement your skills. Here in the Netherlands, after PhD, you are adult. You go on as an independent researcher. So that was a thing that indeed was striking, and it's also the culture in terms of how they look at you after PhD. So after my PhD in France, I took a postdoc in France as well. It was much easier to find there than somewhere else. Well, maybe I didn't apply in all countries I could, but I could be in a very good place in France after my PhD, so that's what I did. But very big differences, I think. The papers you publish should be honest, clear, containing innovation. In that sense, no, there is no difference.
I had a tough time in France because I did PhD in the Netherlands with very non-hierarchical type of supervisor, and I ended in south of France. with a Mexican boss who was very hierarchical. Really, all the when I finished there, I was slightly traumatized. I even bought a book about psychopaths because I was convinced that he was a control freak. And I tried to sort of fight it, and it was just for me, it was a completely terrible experience. But that's not probably like a textbook example. Yeah, so I was a bit unlucky, and I was a bit too modern, and I was too much used for the fact that you have equal rights within the group, which if your supervisor, which I did not choose, disagree with, then actually I sort of describe it that I came back from France because of my partner. That's the official story, but also I knew that for my CV it's good to survive for 1 year, and I would probably move to a different place in France. But it was very specific, and I was not there so long. And because he started to talk to me in French in 2 months, I learned French very well in that period. But then I forgot it very quickly. Yeah. So anyway, so I think I'm not maybe the best person to ask. I have very biased views.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Then maybe we can continue with the career of Kalina.
Yes, well, I was very succinct in writing down just the big steps. I think maybe, what I didn't write down, and I think it's very inspiring from Svena and from Katarina, is the important people. And I think it starts indeed with family, with parents, with the teachers. Also my parents were both of them teachers, and well, it's also, let's say, the school education. I come from let's say ex-communist country, and part of my youth was actually communist. But the education system was was not complete, but it was let's say we didn't have anything else like here. Like you have here a lot of options also outside school. So what I noticed here, for example, the schools promote a lot of sports day, but they never talk about Olympics in mathematics, or it's at the choice of the children. And sometimes if the children are not aware of that, they will not even know that there is a, I don't know, kangaroo competition or something else. And well, I also lost a very important person when my master supervisor, the professor which was let's say leading me in master in Romania, also passed away when I was still doing my master. And it was the knowledge. It's not about the knowledge always, because I think there were enough competent, let's say, people that could pick up. And then, yeah, I was actually fortunately I finished my degree in master in physics, but I missed the patient that he was radiating for theoretical physics, and the bond that you have built with such a person, I really let's say it was a really big loss for me, and it's still. And later, let's say about 10 years ago, I also lost my father, who was professor in mathematics, and he was also for me, let's say, he was never my teacher at school, but at home I was sometimes, in Romania we don't have so much light, so you will watch the sky, and then he knew the stars, and for me this was very important, because the stars look all the same, but how could he find patterns and recognize where is what? And the mathematics didn't come to me always like a dry things, but also with stories, also stories about mathematicians. And unfortunately, I do not have the patience to do that with my kids now. But in some moments in my life when I do not know what to do, I think back what would these important people for me would advise me to do. And maybe they will not be, it's not so much about what the answer to the questions, because these people also make their mistakes. But I think it's good to have their memory as a reference point, and as a support. And when you make the choice to think how to how would we act and how would they say, and maybe they would, even then we will not find the right answer, but at least we would have that mental conversation in finding out which path to follow. And of course, there are more important people to me. There is my family here, and there is my mom and my sister, my brother that still live in Romania. And yes, they are absolutely very, how to say, very important in keeping, let's say, keeping them close to me. Yes, and also the family that I built here, of course.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, very nice. I think what I maybe might also be an obvious question looking at what is on the slide is so that you moved on to a company, you did not decide to stay in academia. So I don't know whether you're willing to share a bit about why you made that choice, and also what, in your opinion, is the difference between academia and industry, let's say, or company.
I think this choice was I always liked research, so I like because it's always new questions that you have to answer and new problems that you have to tackle every day. So for me that was important to follow. And at the moment that I did my PhD, it was not very clear how many chances I would have to continue doing research if I would move towards postdocs, and how many years that would have taken. I think also I was tired of the bureaucracy. At the moment that I joined Netherlands, I was outside Romania was outside European Union, and for me to be able to, let's say, follow a career in any of the countries in, let's say, France or the Netherlands, meant also arranging a lot of visas, and doing that every 2 years for a postdoc really made me tired. And meanwhile, I also had my boyfriend at that time, that is Netherlanders, the Dutch. When the opportunity came to join Philips and the research center of Philips, they were looking for a theoretical physicist. Then actually I gladly embraced it, and I enjoyed from the very beginning the problems that I've been tackling. And indeed, it gave me, let's say, some rest from everything that came besides. And I agree with Vena. Indeed, choosing for industry research center is a lot easier, also because of the let's say, finding a permanent position. However, as I also said, sometimes you also need a change. And people that choose for a permanent position think wrongly that if they are not going to go for a change, then it's easier because you don't have to take a risk. But staying there in the position where you are, it's also taking a risk. So it's also closing things that are in other places. So I do, how to say, I do embrace change, and I've been also changing either, let's say, topics in research or departments at Philips. And yes, I'm also, let's say, very curious of what other friends of mine from other companies are doing. But I do really like Philips because it's let's say, a company that to which I embrace a lot the vision for changing and doing innovation in healthcare. So if I would look in the surrounding of the Netherlands or Eindhoven, I think at the moment now it's still the company that where I feel most, let's say, at home, and I recognize mostly the vision with it. But within the company, I do like to change topics and challenge, and it's not easy because every time you change a department, you need to not only to learn new things, but also to learn people around, to learn projects and which projects are more interesting for you. sometimes you do not have a choice, like not only supervisor, but you don't have a choice for which project. And yes.
Yeah. No, thank you. I mean, it's very interesting, and indeed some of the additional challenges that some of us face, indeed, if you are, from abroad, and other, non-scientific challenges, and then, as you mentioned, that, making a choice to stay is also making a choice, which can, of course, have consequences, let's say. So I think that's indeed a very important lesson. So moving on a bit from the career paths, we actually also asked everybody or would like to discuss a bit, let's say, technical competencies, because data science, as is kind of depicted in this image here, you can have, of course, a lot of different aspects to it. And so what kind of skills do you consider to be crucial, and also how do you invest in the development of these skills, and what kind of tips and tricks do you have, let's say, for the people in the audience? So maybe Kalina, you can continue a bit.
Yes, so I recognize from, by the way, I brought something, I tried to be not biased and first put down things that come to my mind. But then, of course, everything that you mentioned in the beautiful flower is very recognizable. So this is not, let's say, to in contradiction with that. At the time that I studied, there was not such a study that you do data science, and I think there are, of course, society and changes, and let's say trends in new technologies will always, let's say, bring us to new areas and more specialized areas. But I think I keep on saying mathematics is very important, even if you become a doctor later. I mean, not PhD doctor, but even if you follow medical things. And what I love a lot from physics, because I think I like a lot mathematics, but in the end I studied physics, and I think physics helps a lot to approach a problem, to split it from in complex, let's say, a complex problem, to split it in sub problems and to tackle. So in the end, we learn a methodology, and not, let's say, I'm not doing now, currently I'm not doing something with physics, but the way of thinking and the way of approaching a problem is still from there. And I think curiosity, I put here affinity with technology, but I think keep being curious. Don't know if you can train something, or if it's something that in general, people with that do, let's say, that choose for engineering or for technical, let's say, studies, have that. And also, I think it's very important to love what you do. And what impressed me a lot today, and all my compliments to all the speakers, is that you all have radiated your passion for what you're doing, and almost unstoppable. So yes, we have here Zeta, who actually I was impressed with how clearly she explains, and how it was an inspiration for me also, because you really pointed also challenges, and that's not, let's say, something that people know how to bring forward. And I
Thank
was
you.
also yes, and it's very sincere what I'm saying. And of course, I was also, how to say, contagious by Katarina's talk with the game theory in oncology. Definitely a very, very inspiring topic. And you couldn't, how to say, you couldn't stop her. And I wished we had a lot more time for her to continue her talk, because it's so interesting. And also the other speakers definitely sharing their passion for what they are doing, and compliments also to the organization, because they made an excellent combination of academics and industry and clinical insights. So yeah, I think that shows the passion that we ladies, maybe also men, have for what we do.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kalina. Indeed, I cannot agree more. Indeed, that if you do what you're passionate about, that you will probably be very good at it, and it won't feel as work, of course. Maybe Sveta, if you can comment on what was, let's say, important for you in developing these competencies and the tips that you have.
Yeah, sure. I should say, though, that I put that competences that I have, which is, I think, not really what I have to talk now about, but to generalize what I have now on the slide in terms of competences, it's just on my humble opinion, of course, I would think that the data science is a science that relies on several ones. So then it makes sense to probably be very good in one of those or in several. But I think if we remember indeed that flower of data science, there are plenty of topics, and it's probably difficult to know up until the basics, everything from basics to state of the art per topic. So I would say, indeed, you need generally technical education. You need to know basics of mathematics and physics. And well, in my case, I have chosen for images, but finally, you need to have a good knowledge in something that will actually move data science forward. That's at least what I think. I think it based on the fact that 20 years ago, data science as an expression or science was not often mentioned. There were also no dedicated education passes for that, even though students were doing something in data science. Now we have a new domain, we call it data science. We have to see finally how it will now take its form. And we are forming it. So it is a responsible a moment of high responsibility, because when our children go to study, they will study something called data science, and I think it will not be the same as now. So that's why we need to bring maximally our expertise there to form the domain. And in terms of tips, there is this well-known phrase. I couldn't find who is the author because internet, it's a very rich place. But sometimes it's poor in terms of reliable information. So if you choose a job you like or you love, you will not have to work. That's something that can keep you running for quite a long while. We also, especially as women in science, despite all the developments of humanity, having a child is quite a burden also on a woman. And in the beginning, mainly still a lot on the woman. Not because men are bad, but because some physiology requires that the woman slows down and, gets the child. So I think we are very much ahead in terms of what is now possible. But still, if you love what you do, you will not suffer doing it, even when you are weaker or when you are more busy. This is at least the thing that helped me through up to now. In the developments.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And again, also, to the audience, if you still have any questions or comments, feel free to put them in the chat if you want to, ask some follow-up questions on this. And then indeed also from Katerina. So
I think this is again what are my superpowers. So I think that's obvious, right? So the game theory, and I put in evolutionary biology, which I understand more and more, and numerical mathematics. And I think also sort of understand what data correspond to what models is important, because it should not be that you have this big hammer and you use it for everything that looks like a nail. So I think that's what I see sometimes if you don't have enough overview. So I do agree with I think it was Sveta who was saying that knowledge should be of the shape of T, definitely in the beginning, that you have something that you really know very well, and then the rest which you know a little bit bigger. But I think that as you progress in your career, you are becoming more and more broad, and you cannot anymore do all these T's. But there has to be something you are really good at. And I wanted to add that I do agree that it's good if you are working on things you're passionate on, but I noticed that it will be maybe these weaknesses. Right, so I loved rock climbing. Before I had kids, I had also a lot of time to do climbing, and it was very funny that you could very long proceed on a type of routes which fit you well, and you would get to very high difficulty. And then at some point, you could not progress anymore because you did not work on these weaknesses you had. And it would take you a year or two to actually get it just a little bit better. And so for example, I'm really messy. I hate email, and I have 2,000 unread emails, like answering them typically. So I know that if it gets above 3,000, I'm incapable to work normally. So I have to get it to some normal. So it doesn't mean that I will ever become very organized, but I just should not be as messy that it sort of destroys all the efforts I have, because it's always easier to go in the direction which goes easily and to sort of not work on these weaknesses. So it's not that I will probably not be ballerina if I start now. But if it was like sort of important to be sometimes ballerina, I should at least do some training about it. I'm not sure if I'm metaphorically explaining it properly. Yes.
No, yeah, thank you, Katerina. No, I see what you mean indeed, and it's very indeed you have the tendency to work on what you also like and what you're good at, but working on some other aspects is also important. There's a question in the chat, so thank you for sharing your personal perspectives in the context of Women's Day. Do you feel that there are still some social biases or conditions that challenge women in the field? And if so, do you have any particular advice or opinion? So I don't know who wants to take that question first, or
I can start maybe. In terms of, let me see exactly how it was, the biases, social biases. Well, to be honest, we touched upon the topic of being in France or here. I was a bit surprised here in the Netherlands. Culture is something that you sometimes cannot touch or cannot show, keeping it in your hands. But there is a spirit in the air, which you basically, if you make an effort, you can materialize. I found some articles in newspapers, etc., that could support what I want to say, namely, a girl in engineering in France, it's not very strange, and it's also like an engineer. In the Netherlands, it's a kind of a strange pathway to follow, which some people, I think, find unexplainable. And another social bias, or kind of bias in the perception that I see, it also has to do, of course, with how you were raised, in which country, which culture. Here, a mother of a child who goes to work full time is a very strange person. There are countries where a mother who goes to work part time is a very strange person, because she will work full time. So this is something that in the Netherlands is very much present. It is starting at a very young age, so the children are indoctrinated. That's my opinion. This indeed family life and choices are, of course, there is a lot of, how to say this, feminism and whatever. Obviously, we are in a free country, but what I notice, I can give you one example. My daughter is one of the best in the class, maybe top 2 for mathematics. Just she likes it. I don't know. It came this way. We never pushed to this. She had last year. She had a very good teacher who really paid attention to many things and was a very friendly and good person, I think. So one day she came home and she said, our teacher told, so she was 9, I think, in that one. our teacher told that mathematics is for boys, and they can be good there or something like that. We were really no reason for that. It's just an opinion that came just by coincidence. And this is not the one time that I hear that a teacher already at school points groups like that. And this is always the same girls are weaker. So if you raise your children with this in mind, don't be surprised that there is one girl out of 100 students in electrical engineering. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah. I also studied engineering myself, so I know I was also one of the very few women in the engineering, and also I was told when I was studying it, like the professors also explicitly said that we should not be there. So, also because in light of time, so I propose that we kind of move on, because I think we're also touching a bit also now on the work-life balance topic. So maybe while we touch upon this topic, we could also at the same time answer the question so that we can stick to the schedule a bit. So maybe Katerina, you can share a bit about your work-life balance, or do you have?
Yeah. So the question is if I'm the right person to start. I mean, I live in chaos, and that's a normal state. Everywhere are toys, and it's messy at home, and it's because we don't have time for all these things, and I don't iron, and the chaos is a normal part of my life somehow. So I'm not sure if you would call it balance, but I am not bothered about it until my mother comes for visit somehow. But by the way, just a quick comment to Sveta's comment. In my case, my mother told me, you are a girl, so you should find a very easy job, like be a basic school teacher, such that in the afternoon you can take care of your family. And that pissed me off so much that they said my older brother should have a career and I should be. But actually he went, he did not do this and I did, because they really. So maybe this motivation might make her, stronger in a way, right? That she will prove that she can do it. Yeah. So that's okay. Sorry, that was another topic. And then of course I think I'm just quoting somebody, but I really came to the conclusion that there is not such a thing as a perfect parent, researcher, educator, supervisor. I think like doing our best is the best we can do. That's the best possible. And I think that if we try to strive for perfection on any of these individual objectives, which we try to optimize at the same time, we just end up in antidepressives, I think. Yeah. And that's normal, that's fine, and everybody might have a different mixture of what is important for them, and that's also fine. And sometimes I have to put myself first because I'm a workaholic, and it's true that my partner sort of hides my laptop during Christmas holiday because I sneakily try to still work. Yeah, so that's why maybe I'm again the other ladies will be better to start. I think maybe, I'm not sure. And after action reports, so that's from the word terminology. If something went wrong, you should really sit down and discuss it. What went wrong, right? All these conflicts at home, why things did not go as you. Yeah, so basically, once there is a calm situation, then basically discuss it calmly with everybody and try to figure out how do we do it better next time instead of sort of shouting fanatically on each other in the situation. I think that sort of works for us. And then the last point, I think that somehow relates to Kalina's comment that staying is also a choice. When you really spend hours, not hours, months to contemplate whether the place you are is the good place, that you worry about it, then likely this is not the right place. And I think it's probably very scary to switch or go somewhere else, but if you feel that way, do it. That's my suggestion.
Yeah, thank you very much. Sveta, do you also want to briefly comment on work-life balance and whether you found a balance?
Well, I don't want to claim I found a balance, so but I agree with Katerina. Finally, you embrace that things are not ideal. Then you say, okay, that's how life goes. In principle, I think, to be honest, people did it always. It's just that they had maybe other jobs, but when they had more children, do you think it was a perfect home with perfect, everything? I don't think so. So in that sense, we are just continuing living like humans, and it's a choice. And I also agree with Katerina. If you spend a lot of time thinking what is wrong, or you are taking books about psychiatry to check whether your boss has some symptoms. That's time to change, and it's a matter of putting you in the state of mind that okay, the change is coming, and I'm ready to lose because I will also win. If I lose now, I will win later. If I let it be like this, I will probably lose everything. So the tips that I kind of learned sometimes in a hard way is to learn to set priorities. I'm now already for a year or more in committees to promote our staff colleagues in their academic career or to hire new people. So I'm learning how these committees make decisions inside. And I can tell you that nobody will praise you if you're half dead, sitting next to, presenting your work because you tried 1,000 things. What they rather want to see is that you excel in one of them or two. And so learn to set priorities. Don't be afraid to say no or to say, I don't follow that direction, I will follow another one. Because following 10 directions will not make you happy, also will not make you successful in the current setting you are trying to do your career. And another thing I learned also in a more or less hard way is that planning for thinking like I will work very seriously because I'm a very serious girl and I will fight all those visions on goals. So I will plan my agenda like 100%, 9-10 hours per day, etc. I can tell you this stuff will be ruined like a house of cards, because once you have a toothache, one meeting cannot be followed because of that another one, and that's a problem. So if you have children, this increases with the factor of, So my advice would be never plan a full agenda. It will get full itself. That's my last tip.
Yeah, I really like that. That's definitely going to be a take-home message for me because I also have the tendency to do that. And then it's a pity because also then I don't have time, for example, for if one of my PhD students wants to have an urgent meeting with me or, and then I also am like, oh, this is such a pity because I want to help you. And then I have all kinds of other meetings. So I think this is a very good, very good advice. And then Kalina, if you also have, I'm looking at Vizara a bit. Do we still have a couple of minutes?
We are 5 minutes over, but I think we should hear from Kalina and then we're going to go to the closure.
And then we can wrap up. Okay, perfect. Yeah, Kalina, go ahead.
I think many things that I have listed here are already said. Maybe a couple of things that connect a bit to what I heard from Katerina and Sveta. So yes, I think we need to make our choices. And I must say, for how much I like spending time with friends, I get also tired. Maybe I'm introvert or something. And it sounds very strange, but since I got the children, I started running. I never did sports. I never liked sports when I was a child. But why? Because then it's a very easy way to say no in a polite way. I just say tomorrow I have my running, so I cannot do anything else. So, well, I do it a few times a week, but still it helps me to set goals and also to be sometimes alone, really alone. In our case, my husband likes a lot of sport, so there is always a good motivation to go for sport because he will take care of everything. Well, another thing that I wanted to say is that coming from a communist country, my both parents worked, and they didn't work 5 days a week; they worked 6 days a week because that was how it was working there. So our house was never perfect. Well, my mom was sometimes getting some help, but even with little help, it was never perfect because we were 3 children, and you can imagine what was there. Yet somehow we all became mature and independent. So I think our children can do the same. Plus, it taught me that it's possible. And maybe one thing that I would like actually to challenge in the thoughts of the audience, because it suggests from Katerina and Sveta that maybe sometimes it's time to change, but because, for example, you start wondering whether it's the right place for you. But every time I have changed, in my case, well, except when I finished the PhD, there was no other way than changing. I always changed where actually I liked what I do. Reason for which I still keep working on all the topics. And even the topics, so for example, now I'm actually working in, I didn't have the chance to talk about other topics that I'm working in sensing and patient monitoring and in developing sensing and everything. The topic that I presented now is not what I'm doing now. It's things that I still continued because I still left roots in the places where I left. And I think I did it because over there I still have good connections, and I left in a moment that people still wanted to have me and still drag me back. And I think that's also something very powerful. No, don't always leave when you are in a not happy moment. Depends on the situation, of course. You shouldn't make your life too difficult, but sometimes actually the opposite. When you think I've done some achievements here, and it's maybe then the moment to think, can I actually not do now a change? Because you will look for something from better to even better, from good to better, instead of from bad to something that you might accept actually when you live with difficulties in your head. And I've seen that to friends of mine. When you reach that moment that you don't like it anymore, you might accept compromises. And so be aware also of that side of the coin when you make the choices. With this, actually, I do not know if I can add anything else. So else that I have enjoyed a lot this event and meeting you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. And to show also that everybody can and should do what they really would like to do, and that it's that it's all possible. I'm not saying that it's not difficult, but it is possible. So I think, yeah, I would just like to close the session and then also give the word back to Vizara. So I would like to thank the speakers or the panelists, let's say, for their contribution today and to being so open to sharing all these experiences and your wisdom, let's say, and your thoughts with the audience. I hope they enjoyed it. I at least enjoyed it very much. And I also like to thank the audience for the interesting questions in the chat. And yeah, then I give the word back to Vizara.
Thank you for watching this WiDS Conference 2022 video from Maastricht. And you're welcome to watch more conference videos from WiDS Worldwide on YouTube. Please keep watching.